Hello and welcome to the EchoChamber podcast. My name is Tony Groves and today we're in a slightly upgraded tortoise shack, complete with a llama. Martin, do you like the llama?
I love the llama, but I'm so disappointed that the second day of the farming debacle down the country is cancelled. It has me so depressed.
The ploughing is cancelled due to the wind.
Adverse. Back in my day, they'd plough in any weather.
Listen, you are the sugar on my pancakes, Martin. Much more importantly, we're delighted to be joined in the tortoise shack by writer, actor, activist and playwright Grace Dyas. Grace, You've been on a podcast with me before with Rory and Reboot, but you're the first person we've had in, obviously, in the new digs. And you know what? I was delighted last night. I was out talking to other people at Lynn Rowan's book launch, and we had a good conversation about who impressive people that we met. And we were singing your praises. So myself and Roisin Ingle had a row over who thought you were most impressive. Really. So thanks so much for being the first one in the new upgrade. How are you?
Well, it's amazing, the upgrade. The difference is unbelievable in here.
Yeah. We've moved the bookshelf, folks.
Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah.
It's in a new place.
Yeah,
and there's a couch.
Yeah. Oh, listen, all the bells and whistles we could. But Martin might sleep in his way. It's good if things get going.
It's actually big enough for me.
No, listen, you are up to your eyeballs busy at the moment, and it's great that you've taken time to have a chat with us because you have your play Heroin going. It's going around the country.
Yeah.
You were in Ballymun last night, and how is it going?
It's going great, yeah. It's a new production. So the play was first produced in 2010 and it won the Spirit of Fringe Award that year. And then since then, pretty much, it's been on the road. So it's been on tour around Ireland, and then we also went to Portugal with it, Finland and the Netherlands with it.
Yeah.
And it's been, I guess to explain what it is, it goes through the history of drugs in Ireland from the 60s right up to the present day. And it would be the work that I made that kind of led to my becoming an activist. So it goes, there's kind of a scene in the 60s, scene in the 70s, scene in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and now we've added in a scene for the 2010s. So it's kind of a weird feeling to be doing it because I'm really enjoying doing it, and I got to work with a whole new cast, which is amazing. But at the same time, I'm disappointed that it's still happening. I'd hoped that the play would become irrelevant in the 10 years in between that's been on. It's very disappointing that it's still as relevant as ever. It tries to kind of look at why drug users are one of the most hated groups in our society, and why what I would view as a kind of an illness is then treated like something that needs to be punished. Yeah. And that's what the play is kind of trying to unpack. And unfortunately, that's become more and more relevant. Yeah,
and it is funny because we've obviously spoken to people, and we're in Ballymun last night, and we know counsellors in Ballymun have started to talk about an epidemic of crack in Ballymun, and it's only started, but it didn't arrive last weekend.
No, exactly. And I think it's like it's a cyclical kind of thing that's happening. Like, I mean, there was stuff. We did a piece up on the wall on the Ballymun Road. We just made a statement that said, "This is class genocide, an economic massacre. We are the ones with the targets on our backs." And then the hashtag Heroin 2018. And we were interviewing young people about it, and they were saying, when we call the guards, like they don't come, and the community garden was vandalised and the guards didn't come, but they came to talk to you about this piece or whatever, all that kind of stuff. And it was really upsetting, like, because I just turned around to the young person, I said, do you realise what you're saying could have been said by someone in 1972, 1982, 1992, that we are just in this cycle where we think we're doing something about it, and we start to there might be a report or a big, like we had the Mulvey report after all the shootings in the inner city, we had CAB and the methadone protocol after Veronica Guerin, but people put a lot of work and time into solutions that actually just don't happen. So it's like recommendations are in these reports and then they're not acted upon. And I think it's because drug users are so undervalued in society. Like they're looked upon as like people who've made a choice, and why should I have to, it's their choice to be a drug addict, and there couldn't be anything further from the truth. Like, we were all once beautiful little innocent babies in prams. No one woke up and decided, I'm going to become a heroin addict, It's not something anyone ever aspired to be. But the reality is that heroin and crack are really strong painkillers. And over the 8 years that I've been working on this play, I've met thousands of drug users, and each and every one of them when I got to talk to them kind of one-to-one, disclosed to me that they were sexually abused. Like, I never met someone who didn't have an experience of sexual abuse. And I just find that connection really palpable. Like, it's a painkiller. It's a way of dealing with pain. So people are hurt. They're in pain. They try and solve that pain. And then we punish them further for trying to solve that by locking them up, where they become more addicted and more likely to commit crimes, because they learn better ways of committing crime in prison. And we have a situation that we're pumping thousands into the prison system. Like, it costs €22,000 a year to house one prisoner. But there's only 30 detox beds available in the country. So literally, as a society, what we're saying is these are our values. If you're hurt and you need help and you're sick and you come to us for help, we will put you on a waiting list. So the waiting list to get into a treatment centre, or into a detox bed rather, could be up to 3 or 4 months for some people, depending on where they're from, the catchment area. And realistically, the window of opportunity for a drug user is very, very small if they want to get well. So if you're asked for help, you're put on a waiting list. But if you do something wrong, you're sent to prison. No waiting.
Have you come across a class divide? I remember listening to John Lonergan, who's the former governor of Mountjoy, and John was saying that the people in Mountjoy, predominantly 3 different areas. Summerhill was one of the areas, Finglas was another one of the areas, and then West Dublin was the other area. And he said there was a huge class divide with those who get imprisoned for drug use as compared to those who we'll consider the guys who are taking coke on the south side. That it's not seen
they're
as
less likely
much,
to go to prison.
Yeah, far less likely. But also their chances of rehab are greater. Far greater to get into rehab.
Yeah, 100%. Like, drug addiction, don't get me wrong, and all addiction, whether it be food, whether it be gambling, alcohol, it affects everyone from all walks of life, because everyone has pain that they're trying to deal with in different ways. But if you're from a working class community, if you're from a place that's been let down time and time again, and that's been kind of neglected, you're more likely to not have the economic means to support yourself to get into a treatment centre. So if you're from Foxrock and your kid is on drugs, you might be more likely to have the means to go into a private residential treatment centre. But if you're from Ballybock and the same thing happens, it'd be very, very difficult. You're put onto that waiting list, or you're sending your kid to a community drug team where they're going to be prescribed methadone. And then methadone is they're on that for life then. Like in 1999 they introduced the methadone protocol, and it was meant to be around for 10 years. And we now have like 10,068 people in the country on a methadone prescription, and some of those people have been on it for more than 20 years. And they're looking now at the grey methadone problem. What are they going to do when they have to start prescribing methadone to people in the nursing homes? So the solutions are very different. The access you have is very different. And what that leads to is a kind of a class genocide, where the people in Ballybock and the people in where I'm from, Fatima, the people where Rachel is from, Ballymun, they end up dying. Whereas the people in other more affluent areas, there's more intervention and they get more time away from drugs, and they survive longer. So the mortality rates, it's statistically, it's there. That people from working class areas die sooner, and that drug related deaths in working class areas are massive.
And the ones who, the people who are buying drugs, they're not all from working class areas. You get people from more affluent areas coming to working class areas.
Absolutely. It's like these areas are literally like Fatima. It's like a shopping centre for drugs, and people coming in from all over, buying drugs and leaving. And the same people who buy a load of coke for parties at the weekends buy them off the same guys whose brothers and sisters they might see in the street and call junkies. Like, do you know what I mean? So it is really about where you're from and the means that you have.
And that's, again, it's timely now, and you're talking about the frustration of how it's happening. It's cyclical. But there is huge, for the first time I recall, a proper conversation starting to happen around what is class discrimination, because we've seen, I want to say, the establishment kickback with reverse snobbery kind of things have been brought in, and all of this actually lends weight to the truth is that some lives actually are deemed worth less.
That is the case in terms of what you invest. If you're willing to invest €22,000 a year to keep someone in prison, but you're not willing to invest in increasing the amount of detox beds, you are valuing those people less.
Yeah, and it boils down to it. Like, if you want to talk in economic terms, it literally said it actually means that some lives are cheap.
Yeah,
and I've seen some statistics, and they value lives, I think, around €14,500. But that's actually a.
But that even goes beyond drug use. That goes to services. It goes to housing. If you live in a more affluent, we'll take for instance even the Lewis. You have more public transport coming in from the south side into Dublin than you do anywhere on the north side coming into Dublin.
Yeah,
you're just serviced better. You're deemed to be more worthy of money spent on you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely.
In the play, you're saying that you go 60s, 70s, 80s, and then up to the current day.
It's up to the future.
Oh, right.
So it ends in 2020. So the last section is about the future. Okay. And it's actually a declaration, because we were talking downstairs about leadership and powerlessness, and I feel at this point it's up to us to take leadership on the issue. So rather than saying, oh, wouldn't it be great if people did something about it, what we're actually saying, myself and Rachel Keogh, is we are doing something about it. And we're promising that by October 2020, all of this is going to change. That there will be a legislative shift, there will be a radical shift in how we as a society view drugs and drug users, because we've waited long enough. Like, we're doing a piece as part of the overall campaign called the Beautiful Souls List, which is where we're asking people who've had family members who've died due to inaction, so we might say even who've been killed due to inaction. So someone, say, who didn't get onto a treatment program and then died, or someone who was killed in gang warfare, because it's all coming from the root cause of the legislation, that we would like them to add their name to this list, and then at the end of the play we light a candle for them. And last night in Ballymun, the stage is just full of candles at the end, and the whole audience are in bits crying because they recognise that symbolism, like they recognise those names, and it's really, really upsetting. So we're hoping that through kind of highlighting that, we're making visible that this class genocide is ongoing. And that's why we can't say anymore, we're just artists, we're just here to say the problem, we're just here to, provoke dialogue. We have to actually lead on the issue as well and go, right, we are saying that by October 2020, we're setting this deadline, because no one else is going to set us for us. Because the government, all they keep saying is change doesn't happen overnight, the thing of the housing thing. And it's just like, it's ridiculous.
Actually, the truth of it is, change does happen overnight. It
Yeah.
does. And everything in our history shows us you can go to bed on a Monday and wake up on a Tuesday in a different world.
Absolutely. I mean, that happened to me in May, you know, like when we were touring around Ireland with Not at Home, the piece we did about the referendum. And like, it was really tough because we had people spitting at us, we had people showing us leaflets and everything, and it was really, like, the piece was non-partisan, but it was really, like, it was intense. And when we were doing it, we had people all over kind of saying, you know, what's it going to be like and what's the outcome going to be. And then when we woke up and it was 67%.
Yeah. You woke up in a different country.
You woke up in a different country.
But the country was there.
It was there. It was
already there.
Yeah, but you didn't. Well, I think on this issue, the 2020 thing, I think I'm able to say 2020 is 2 years because I know it's already there.
Yes.
I know that people I talk to in the street and, you know, other people in these kind of circles and activists and anyone who has a conscience is already on board. It
comes down to though there's only one blocker, and it's the myth of Leo's Republic of Opportunity myth.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he thinks he's a self-made man. And that if you actually are, if you're on drugs or you take drugs or something, that's a weakness in you.
Yeah.
It's not actually the fact that you were socio-economically disadvantaged, your education was disadvantaged, your home life was disrupted, whatever the trauma was. There was a lot of trauma, and there's a lot of pain, and people self-medicate and they have escapism via this. This is the model they use. But he actually deems it as that they're somewhere. They were just actually they just weren't strong enough, and they didn't rise above it. Because I rise above it. Because you know, look what I've achieved. That little bit of, I'm going to use the word demagoguery. I'm going to use it. That's where I think that stems from. But that attitude is the one that actually says people who have got these issues are less than. Whereas the reality, what we need to do is, as you said, I think the majority of the country, if you talk to them on a one-to-one level and you actually explain the issues and you talk about, you know, oh, by the way, that guy who robbed your broke into your car or whatever the thing he did. Let's talk about where he got there.
Yeah, what was the reason for it?
Let's follow that trail, and you will know that you know, he didn't wake up this morning and just go, oh, you know, actually, I'm a gouger and I'm going to break into a car today.
No, yeah, of course not.
Well, if you look at the circumstances now where kids are with 4,000 kids in emergency accommodation at the moment, that's a standing army of people that are going to come out of the system at 18 years of age and feel very disaffected.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And when you say army, like, it is an army, but the thing that we need to do is kind of try to empower those people before they come out of the system to be an army in a positive way, to actually go, right, put that energy into solving the situation and put that energy into demanding real change, because that is the only way, as you said, that's the only way it's ever happened, whether it be civil rights in the north or whether it be, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement now. It's always been through people saying enough is enough, like, and we're going to put enough pressure on, and that does change things.
And I think it's very interesting because you brought up Black Lives Matter. You know that the backlash to that was, you know, don't protest this way, or don't take a knee if you're an NFL player. Don't, you know, let's tone police the protesting.
Yeah.
And that has already started now, which, you know, that the fact that Take Back the City we're actually telling people how to organise. They were like they were compared to guerrilla warfare tactics. So the language was used by the TD up the road in Old Rock. He said very militaristic. He said when you start using words like that, you're trying to undermine what is a genuine peaceful protest that's just trying to actually raise awareness because they're effective. You know, like, get a grip, guys. But I think I hope that the majority of people actually realise that I'm not listening to what Deputy Rock or the Minister for Justice was saying. I'm actually saying that these are well-intentioned young people who are trying to make a difference.
Yeah.
I think what you're trying to say, putting a time frame on it, I think that's really powerful, because you're giving yourself a goal. Yeah,
we're giving everyone a goal, you know, but it's also just saying it's already happening. You know, it's like you can, you know, what's the right analogy? Like, bang your head off the wall, or, you know, you can keep shouting into a bucket and saying, you know, it's like, the people that are in power in this country are never going to understand, you know. I don't expect Leo Varadkar to ever understand what it was like to be Rachel Keogh. And nor would that be reasonable or rational to do so. Like, there's no point. There's no point. There's just no talking to some people. We have to actually find a way of achieving the change by going around these people and finding ways to do it ourselves. And I tell you, if people, like in Portugal, when they brought in decriminalisation, it has shifted the mindset around drugs. So if you ask the man in the street, is drugs a health issue or a criminal justice issue, he will say it's a health issue. And that is what we need to achieve. If we achieve that here en masse, that we all believe in our values that addiction should be treated as a health issue, then it would force people like Varadkar to actually reflect that. Such, like, the marriage equality referendums and the, you know, repeal the 8 referendums are case in point. Like, you know, they only did something because the groundswell happened. And that's really positive, because it means we actually do have people power in this country.
Well, I've said that quite a lot, that politics follows the people, not the people follow politics. My opinion is always that politics slows down the people. That we would reach these points much, much quicker if we didn't have kind of very conservative politics. But Portugal has that very conservative politics, and they made the change. And there was always going to be the 36% who were, no, we shouldn't do this. But they made the change anyway, and now it's there.
Well, you see, this whole argument works for conservative politics too, right? Because it is an extortionate waste of taxpayers' money, the current situation that we have. So you're basically saying to the taxpayer, do you want to give $22,000 a year to keep one person in prison where they're definitely going to go back to prison again? So they'll come out, they'll rob again, feed a habit again, and you'll definitely have to pay that $22,000 every year for pretty much the rest of your life, right? And you won't have the right services. You won't be able to get a hospital bed when you need help, because you say, if you look at, you know, Mountjoy, the Mater versus Mountjoy Prison, all your money is going into Mountjoy Prison, so you can't actually get the services you need in the Mater. Or do you want to invest this money into a detox bed for this person for 6 weeks that could lead to that person never costing you another cent for the rest of your life?
In fact, becoming a net contributor.
Yeah, exactly, because, you know, the proof is in the pudding that drug users can and do recover. Everyone has seen, you know, like Russell Brand, Rachel Keogh, who we're working with on Heroin. You know, there's lots of Christy Moore, like there's Francis Black, there's loads of examples of people who have overcome their demons, like, for want of a better. So it's possible, but there has to be investment for people to do that, because I think at the moment anyone who gets well in this country does so against the odds and at a huge personal cost. But imagine if we had a country where anyone of any kind of level of ability or self-efficacy was able to get well.
And I think you're just... Okay, you're not selling it to me because you don't have to, but if you're going to have to sell it to me and I'm sitting here as a right-wing conservative, you're also saying economically what you're doing is incompetent. Yeah. And all you care about actually at the end of the day is debt to GDP ratios. Yeah. So get a grip. Do the most economic sensible thing, you know. It's
such a massive waste of money, and the only thing you buy from wasting that money on the prison service is hatred. You buy the right to hate these people. And is it worth that much to you?
Yeah, that's a pretty powerful way to put it.
Well, you know, you got to realise too, like in Portugal, the most stunning thing about Portugal is that overall drug use has dropped.
Yeah, that's huge.
So younger people aren't getting out. Here, it's illegal, it's a little bit noir, it's something you can do that, you know, it's cool.
Yeah.
And thousands and thousands of young people, my generation, your generation, Tony's generation, have used drugs.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're not
and are
addicts.
Using drugs. Yeah.
They're not addicts. So it's a small group of people who end up addicts. And they do end up addicts, and it could happen to anybody, but your socio-economic circumstance makes you more likely to end up in that trap.
It's 300,000 people registered in 2017 as being addicted to some kind of substance in Ireland. And that's only the people that we know of who are able to be spoken to. Like, I think it's really widespread. I think addiction is actually just something that's here to stay. It's part of modern life.
Yes.
But we have to have an intervention for it. Like diabetes, like, for example, wasn't always as widespread as it is. Or asthma. You know, like, these are, as things evolve, as the conditions that we live in evolve, things become more proliferated.
Yeah.
So we have to, but the difference with addiction is that we haven't coined a response to it that works.
Well, from a societal point of view, lots of people go out there and anaesthetize themselves at weekends. Yeah. They do. They go out, you know, and you got to ask, what's missing in our society? What's wrong there that people feel that they just have to either drink, take drugs,
I think a huge thing is sexual abuse. I think it's much more widespread and rampant than we think it is.
Yeah, and Vincent Brown is one person that has always highlighted it to the nth degree.
Do you remember way back when we one of our first early podcasts with Izzy Kamikaze, and she pointed out the simple fact that we were saying, you know, because it was at the time the lads were kicking back with the not all men. The bros had the not all men thing, and Izzy worked out that, you know, that if one guy in 10 over the course of his life who was not all men but interfered with 4 people, that meant that it literally meant that I think it was 8 out of 10 women would have experienced sexual assault or abuse or harassment, whatever the case may be. So let's tell the truth. Like we all think we're all evolved and we're gonna crack it, but we also see, you know, movements like Me Too that have come out of some awful sexual violence, and some of the perpetrators are back and they're you know, they've been on a journey and they're back and it's all okay again, and I can sense in you the frustration at seeing that being cyclical.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's like amnesia. Do you know what I mean? It's like what happens, like, so it's like all this stuff, like people, when I'm doing interviews about this play, it's like, oh, I see, you know, they're talking to me about Ballymun and open drug dealing and everything, and it's like, am I in the play? Like, you know, because this is what was happening in the 90s, this is what was happening in the 80s, this has just been going on and on and on for a very long time, like, and it needs to, like, I think the big part of the reason why we put that statement up on the wall in Ballymun was like, actually, people need to wake up to the reality of this. Like, this is class genocide. It's an economic massacre. It's been going on for a really long time, really fucking slowly, but it's still going on, and we need to stop it. Like, because like that thing with the Me Too thing, it's like, it's so easy to just forget about it again, because, you know, like, what we're really saying there is that we don't value the pain that person's victims went through. Yeah. That we actually think, we've given it a year, leave it alone. And it's very similar with the addiction stuff. It's like, well, all those people out in Ballymun were dying because of drugs, and then we got them, a youth centre. They have a drama class on a Wednesday, and they have a bus stop now. But they didn't have a bus stop before.
They have everything.
They have everything. So, like, we did that. We dealt with that.
Yeah, but but it is very Irish, and it's because at the top level, that results in a commission of inquiry which will have no findings of enforcement. So there's no actual consequences.
The recommendations are never.
Yes, that's it.
Like, reports are a great way of digging and of burying stuff. We just go, right, here's a report, we published a report, and then we just didn't do anything with it.
I saw Brendan Howland in their after their Labour thinking, talking about the social and affordable housing, and he referenced, I think it was the Finn report, which was from 1983, I think I'm right, and I couldn't believe he was saying, we need to enforce the actions of the Finn report, and I'm looking at it going, I was 4 when the Finn report came out,
what's that about though? Like, what do we actually, like, how, because what's our part in all this? Like, we've all put stuff off, like, I know for me, it took me a long time to do my tax return, because I was like, I don't really want to do that. And then when I did it, I was like, it's not that bad, I'll just find a way to pay that, But like, so what is it about people in government? Like, how can we help them to actually just take action?
Yeah.
And I think in a way, we might have, they can't really help themselves. We're going to have to kind of put a bit of pressure on them, because that seems to be the only way that things get done. Do you know something? They actually really care about the media.
Yes.
That's what I've learned. Like, they care more about if something is going to be in a paper, or if something is going to be talked about, they care much more than, you could be dying in the street and ring up and say, I'm dying, I need your help. And they could go, yeah, well, I'll be there next Friday afternoon or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you said, I'm dying and there's photographers all around me, they'd be like, well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's...
Can you die to my left? That's my good side.
Yeah, totally.
But, no, you're not wrong, because it's become, it was the old phrase, it was always showbiz for ugly people. It was the old phrase, but it's gotten even to the point where we saw, they said, the phrase was, they were getting acting classes as part of the Fine Gael thinking, and they said, we need to learn to emote better. Was a phrase that was used. Imagine actually.
When was the Fine Gael thinking?
3 weeks ago.
2 weeks.
I would have loved to have been their acting teacher.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Imagine if like a Trojan horse, like, I just go in and I'm like, hey, we're going to do the drama. It's like,
again, they are very concerned about media, and it kind of propped up yesterday.
Well, the communications thing, like, that is like Nazi stuff.
Yes.
Like, he has a communications, what's it called?
Special communications unit.
Well, it's called a unit.
It's gone now, isn't it?
But it's
SCU?
not. The people were absorbed. No, they were absorbed into the Taoiseach's, the communications.
They were
office.
Absorbed.
Yes.
Like, the unit, it's a unit. Like, look at that language. Like, do you know what I mean? It's militaristic. Like, it's like Nuremberg stuff.
He flagged it very early, because he said 3 times repeatedly that he thinks communication is a value.
A virtue.
A virtue. That's a really bad word. That's kind of sinister.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not a virtue. It's me talking to you.
Yeah.
My virtues are actually truth, integrity, honesty. All of these things, they're virtues. Yeah. Not actually how I pedal.
Communication is like, it's like a tool. Like, you need it. Like, it's not like
There's a phrase by.
That's like saying it's communication is optional.
Yes. No.
Oh yeah, but communication is optional when you hold power. You don't have to communicate with everybody. You only have to communicate with those who influence people, which we saw an example of.
That's really a failed democracy.
Yes, of course.
It's a failed democracy if communication can be seen as optional. It's like I don't actually care what you think of me. I know you're going to vote for me anyway.
Yeah.
It's like an abusive relationship.
Yeah, well, we are at that stage where quite often the reply to some of the stuff where you're saying, they go, oh, sure, that's the way it's going to be. But what we're saying here in this room today is, no, it's not the way it's going to be.
It doesn't have to be.
Yes, and it just doesn't have to be, because we talk about it all the time, and they say, how do you actually start? Well, you have a call to action, and you actually then start looking at what's deliverable. I know that the language of business comes into it sometimes, but sometimes what gets measured gets done.
Yeah,
so if you're going to do it that way, let's start putting up things that we're going to measure.
These are the things that need to happen to bring about the change that we're talking about around Portugal. So Lynn Ruane already has legislation that she's put onto the Senate floor, and it just needs to come before the Dáil and be voted in, which would decriminalise the drug user. So that's one thing that could happen overnight. The HSC are looking for, basically, the treatment services need to be overhauled in terms of like the methadone stuff, and the fact that like a drug user can go on can go into their doctor and say, can you reduce my dose, and the doctor will very often increase their dose because they're worried about them using again or whatever, or because there's a lot of money in methadone maintenance. So that stuff needs to be highlighted. You know, we as activists and as people in the media can start to expose how much money is actually being put into those pharmaceutical companies. That's a huge thing. That would start to kind of question, okay, is methadone the great panacea?
The efficacy of it and the business speak, the cost benefit analysis, it has to be done.
You're literally saying, I wouldn't give those people, you know, I wouldn't give to charity, or I wouldn't give those people money, but you are giving them money. You're giving them money every week for the rest of their lives, and then you're saying, oh well, people, you know, shouldn't have a right to a home, and I don't want to pay for social housing. Yet you'll pay for people to be on methadone for the rest of their lives, and it's big money that's going into the pharmaceutical companies.
Yes.
Well, I think if they cared as much about people from more disadvantaged areas as they do when it's somebody who has some agency.
You're a famous person.
Famous person. I mean, we have seen that time and time again in Ireland.
Did you see the disappointment this week online, which was actually very palpable, because some of my friends were upset about because the Garda had his picture taken and posted on Facebook, and it was wrong what happened. But nonetheless, the country went into meltdown because this happened. And women that I know have taken years of abuse online and had their mental health affected. And the government, when Leo actually took over, one of his first things he talked about, what came across his desk, was a digital safety commissioner. We spoke to Jess Kelly about it on the podcast, and he shelved it. He put it away. But they called for an online unit in the Gardaí to look into online bullying when it came to a guard having his picture taken. And you've got to understand that means that you are deemed less in the eyes of the state.
What's the guard having? Is this North Frederick Street?
Yes.
Yeah, so his picture was taken.
Yes. And people posted below it, he should be, they use words like bullet in the head and cable tied.
Yeah.
So they went
but it
in.
wasn't.
Does that not chime with the Dara Quigley case? Like?
Yes. Oh,
Do you know what I mean?
absolutely.
Massively. Like, I mean, I'm involved with trying to kind of work out a way of securing some kind of justice around that.
I'm so glad you brought her up, because
like it's like basically that's crazy. It's like a guard is allowed to go in, rewind CCTV footage, video Dara in distress walking down the street naked, put it onto a WhatsApp group. Another guard is allowed to upload it to Facebook, and they don't, there's no prosecution going to come for that. However, when
not even a data protection thing.
Was he wearing a balaclava?
No, he was sitting having lunch.
Oh, so they just took a photo of him out and...
Yeah.
All right, okay. But he was one of the balaclava.
He was one of the balaclava guys.
Yeah.
He was.
So he's allowed to wear a balaclava, go into a place, remove peaceful protesters, as if he's never seen Reeling in the Years.
Yeah.
Like, what he is doing, it's a complete own goal. Like, when I looked at that, I couldn't sleep that night. I was like, this is acceptable, like, to widespread Irish society. We're going to be in Nazi Germany before long. I don't want to have kids in this country. Like, that was the kind of thoughts that I was having. I was like, this is mad. But then when people on social media talk about him, they want to bring in like an online unit. Why didn't they bring in an online unit when they themselves photographed Dara Quigley and put it on the internet and led to her death? Like,
listen, the hypocrisy is just glaring, and I'm so glad you brought up Dara, because it's what was done there. We can't forget it, and it has to be continually brought up.
Well, I want to get involved in trying to bring about some justice for Dara as well. Yeah, it's a long kind of. It's a long-term kind of thing, but we might talk about it on this again.
Oh yeah, you mentioned legislation by Lynn.
Yeah.
Looking into the
exposing the methadone kind of thing. Lynn is great on this. Like, you know, Lynn has also been involved in Community Action Network. Did a study around the human rights abuses of drug users. So, for example, like drug users are asked to take urine tests regularly, when it actually would be much more efficient and much more better results to use swabs in their mouths. But for some reason Ireland still enforces this urine testing thing, which is nothing other than humiliation. Like, that's kind of what
I mean, I can say, because I know this firsthand, I know somebody this happened to, who was caught with a quarter of grass.
Yeah.
And spent the next 12 months every single week having to get a urine sample done to satisfy a judge.
I mean, it's horrific. Like, it's a human rights abuse. Like, it's really
25 quids.
25 quid's worth of grass. And the amount of, but also taxpayers.
Yes,
the
money
amount of money that goes into that and testing those samples, it's insane. But also, it would just be way easier to take swabs, even if you have to go down that mandatory testing kind of route. So what Lynn and the Community Action Network were saying was for drug users to start to report these things to the HSC. So like reporting of things, documenting of things, making it visible. The Gardaí are kind of, recently there's been a lot of reports of Gardaí driving around areas like Fatima and Ballymun, literally over the loudspeaker, speaking to young men, standing around the streets going, evening scumbags.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard that.
Yeah. And that has to be reported.
Yeah.
So it's about maybe a culture of accountability of reporting in communities where you go, every time that happens. And maybe we could create a way of doing that online or something where people could send it in and there could be a group of people who could filter all the complaints and send them to the right place.
Yeah, let's try and fact check them, and make sure that
it might be a challenging thing for some people to do. If you're already so disempowered, just trying to survive, writing a formal complaint could be very challenging.
Yeah.
So maybe if we as activists could start to support that.
Simon McGarr talks about taking away the friction. So if it's hard for someone, as you say, to do that, if you can put in a system where it's actually they can do it in 3 clicks, you do it. Yeah.
And then the other thing is, like, this is an idea that I've been kind of thinking about the last couple of days at the show and stuff. I'm really interested in kind of the peaceful resistance kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I spend a lot of time in the drugs courts because I was interested in it for the campaign and for the show. And wouldn't it be interesting if every time someone was being sentenced for a drug-related crime that they said, I don't accept this, I'm a victim of the war on drugs, like this is, if they just presence even the reality, because everyone is allowed to make a speech, but very rarely they do.
And it's coming to that point now, because we've seen in the housing crisis where, for example, again, to take back the city, they're saying that it's an illegal occupation and it's a breach of someone's property rights. And yet well,
property rights are enshrined in this country.
Yes.
We love property rights, but actual human rights?
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate to sit with the UN Special Rapporteur for Housing, who explained to me that we're in breach of 3 international human rights by not providing adequate housing, and that it would be very interesting if you put a case in the courts where you said, okay, so which law is actually is more broken here, the property holder's rights or my human right to adequate housing? And Ed Honohan, the Master of the High Court, was in here as well, and he said he had a little bit of a giggle and said, "Oh, I'd like to see it tested," because we are really in that place where in our constitution the property trumps the human.
But could we not take legal challenges to that? Can people not sue the Irish state for that?
It costs a lot of money.
That's not the point. The point is we need to start thinking like that.
Yeah,
we need to start because we've met great people in this little room we sit in, and we know that
this is where the revolution's happening. But it's your enthusiasm as well. Like you have the right attitude. Like, do you know what I mean? Like to kind of go and we need to start thinking.
It's hard.
Listen, I'll leave this room hopping, going, yes, Grace.
When you have Tony Duffin in here and you're talking to Tony, and Tony's compassion. Yeah, he's immersed in compassion for people. He doesn't see junkies. Yeah. He doesn't see drug users. He sees people.
And one of their favourite
savable people who can be saved.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's another, go back to the taxpayer. Like when I was I do a lot of work in Limerick, and there's a brilliant project there called PALS. And one of the things that I went in and spoke to the lads, they were all ex-drug dealers who were doing a kind of a course to learn how to manufacture and stuff like that. They're basically doing a kind of a business course. And now my friend Catherine O'Halloran and her father Ray O'Halloran have set up a kind of a thing called Limerick City Build, where it's like people who were in prison go to this kind of training course to learn how to build, but it's also like a building firm, so it's got a kind of commercial thing as well. They do jobs for people around the city, and it's to build the city, so they build up Limerick City, but they also build up themselves. And it's about looking at the innate resources that are in people. If you've lived a life of crime, you have developed skills that are invaluable in business. Like, I know a lot of people who used to be drug dealers who now have taken those skills into developing their own unique business ideas. And if you put those, if you give them another option, because drug dealing is basically like, if I can't join your society, I'm going to start my own.
It is an entrepreneurial cottage industry.
Totally. Yeah.
And it is really an entrepreneur. And you can go from scratch
there's
to the top in a very short space of time.
There is a paper in Chicago about that's in, and it actually worked out that the guy on the street corner was on less than minimum wage as a drug dealer, but it was an economic flowchart. It was all done, and because there was actually a few drug dealers who were raided who kept accounts, and they were very effective and really good, really top notch, showing all the way down to the foot soldiers who was paid what. But
I'd love to see those accounts.
It'll be on freakonomics.com. We'll have it in one of their older, much older original things. But I'll try and find the link. Yeah. Grace, I know you're under time pressure.
Yeah. Let's go and talk to the Sunday World now. Might be different.
But the shout out is that look, we're
I have to do the shout out, right? So, because I don't want to forget all the things. So I always get excited talking about the issues, and then people don't know what to actually do or where they have to go. So the play is on next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. On Wednesday it's on twice at 11 and 8. The rest of the week it's on 8 o'clock in the O'Reilly Theatre in town, which is in Belvedere College, which is beside Parnell Square. The tickets are €30 if you have loads of money. €15 if you have less money. And if you can't afford 15, it's pay what you can. So if you can contact with us, the email address is on all the publicity. Get in contact with us and let us know. No cost won't be a barrier to anyone going to see the play. It's very important to us that people get to see it. But at the same time, we've risked 20,000 on putting it on. So if you do have money and you can afford it, if you're paying €30, you're actually paying for 2 or 3 people to go for €5. Do you know what I mean? So
paying it forward.
Basically, yeah. And if anyone wants to just outright hand us cash, they're more than welcome to do that as well. Because there's no funding for this or anything. We just felt, myself and Rachel just felt compelled with just how bad things are to actually start something up on this again.
Well, look, I think that's it. I think myself and Martin will go along anyway next week, and we're looking forward to it. And I'm delighted that you came back in.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks so much for having me.
Not at all. It's great. And listen, folks, we're going to tweet out the links. We'll put it up on the podcast itself. And you know what? Get along. And if you can't get along, show your support and you know what? Show some compassion, because that's what it comes down to. Show some compassion. Martin? Yeah,
I agree. It's all down to compassion. We're all humans. Everybody was somebody's child. Everybody is somebody's child.
Right, folks. Thanks for listening, guys. The odd person, throw an odd review in, and do check out our what is it? Oh, not the 28th. The 28th in the Axis is going to be jammed, so I don't think there are any tickets available, Martin.
Well, if you're interested in going to the Axis, send a DM to me or Tony, and we will certainly endeavour to fit everybody in if we can. I'm looking forward to seeing you all.
Talk to you all soon, folks. Bye bye.